Ooh, what's going on, guys? It's Horse Beef here, and today I'm going to be building you the perfect MMA fighter. So I'll be taking a specific skill or attribute from a specific fighter that I believe represents the highest level of said skill or attribute, and then pretty much putting them all together to determine, what would be the perfect fighter just based off, you know what I mean? I feel like this type of video has been made before, so I know I'm not breaking new ground with this, but I feel like my version will maybe add a few more wrinkles to that type of discussion. So let's just get into it, man. And now I'd like to start off with probably the first technique that you would learn when beginning to learn any striking martial art, right? At least from my experience, right? Because I've dabbled in Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing in my personal life, and really the main focus off the bat is usually the jab, because it is such an important weapon, and I feel like no one in MMA history has really put it to use in the same way that GSP has. You can maybe say Kamaru Usman. I feel like he's probably next up when it comes to the best jabs, right? Hagar Mousasi is another one that comes to mind. But the variations in which GSP would throw it, right? He could throw it while stepping in. He could throw it while planted, nice stiff jab, and then he could also nail you with a beautiful Superman jab. You think you're out of range, and he just pops you with that thing from pretty much anywhere, man. And GSP would essentially win fights and became the greatest mixed martial artist of all time with an elite jab and takedowns, essentially, right? And for me, yeah, GSP is the perfect representation of how to use a jab in MMA, and one of the greatest jabs in combat sports history, really. And considering how important the jab is, if you're really creating this Frankenstein fighter, right, compiling the best attributes from some of the best fighters in history, I feel like you logically have to include the jab of Georges St-Pierre. And then we have to move on to defense and counter striking. Now, these of course are two separate skill sets, but I believe that both have been displayed at the highest level by Peter Yan. I know when people think about a head movement, I guess they'll usually think about maybe a Dominic Cruz or TJ Dillashaw, but I believe that Peter Yan has displayed some of the best striking defense ever in MMA. I think his high guard combined with his head movement, very subtle head movement. I guess that's why a lot of people don't really give him credit for how good his head movement really is because it's as head movement is supposed to be. You'll see that, he lands that body kick there, then rolls under the counter shot. And to go hand in hand with his high guard and his overall fantastic defense is his impeccable ability to counter strike, even against some of these sharpest strikers at bantamweight, meaning some of these sharpest strikers in MMA in general. Namely, Sean O'Malley. He's considered to be one of the best, if not the best striker in MMA, and Peter Yan put on a counter-striking masterclass on him in the third round, which is the round that Sean O'Malley supposedly won, that gave him the fight. I'm not too sure I subscribe to that notion because Peter Yan was piecing him up pretty good. And then you have another one of the best strikers to compete at bantamweight or featherweight, and that is Jose Aldo. And Peter Yan just catches and then shoots, and he does it so brilliantly. My man Peter Yan, of course you guys knew that I would find any reason to put him in any one of my videos, but I truly do believe that Peter Yan represents the highest level when it comes to defense and counter striking. So you can call me a Peter Yan glazer all you want with your TikTok brains, but he deserves to be here. And if we're being honest, man, if you know what you're looking at, then you would 100% agree with me. Of course, there are other fighters that could represent this particular category. Ones that come to mind would be maybe Anderson Silva, Ilia Topuria, even most recently, I think, displays some very, very high level defense and counter striking to go along with that. But Peter Yan has just displayed it against some of the highest level strikers that the UFC has to offer, so he has to be here to represent striking, defense, and counters. Now, when it comes to wrestling, there was only one option for me, and that was Khabib's. There's never been a more dominant grappler in the history of MMA, at least for me. He's made excellent grapplers like RDA and great sprawling brawlers like Justin Gaethje, for example, look like they've never wrestled in their entire lives, right? And we've seen recently with Islam Makhachev coming up and pretty much surpassing Khabib in terms of resume and potentially even legacy, but even he's not able to ragdoll people the way that Khabib did. And I just think it really does come down to Khabib just having such a suffocating top pressure that's never been replicated and may never be replicated, in all honesty. The man is just a complete bear in there, super one-dimensional. But the fact that he got as far as he did and remained undefeated throughout his entire career while being this one-dimensional fighter that he was shows the level of mastery that he really had in the grappling department, specifically with his wrestling. Of course, yeah, the sambo throws, everything about his grappling was just top level. Even his jiu-jitsu was excellent, man. The mounted triangle that he managed to pull off against Justin Gaethje is one of the more impressive submissions I've ever watched live. And yeah, Khabib, not the biggest fan of him, but I would be lying if I said that he wasn't the best wrestler in MMA history. And then we get on to a particular martial art that I'm not really as well versed in as some of these striking martial arts, but I've still witnessed enough of Demian Maia's fights and watched jiu-jitsu competitions over time to where I have somewhat of an understanding to at least describe why I think Maia is the highest level. I don't really think it requires much explanation. Of course, other than him, you can maybe point to someone like Charles Oliveira, maybe even Gilbert Burns, someone like Jacare as well, maybe going back to even someone like Sakuraba. But yeah, my choice is Demian Maia. One-dimensional as all hell, just like Khabib, but in his case it's with jiu-jitsu and has compiled one hell of a resume for himself over time through multiple divisions. Yeah, Demian Maia, this one I feel like is the most self-explanatory. Yeah, he's my choice for jiu-jitsu, 100%. Now, a trait that I think would be very important for building the perfect fighter would be timing and accuracy, and I think they do go hand in hand in a sense, and well, they do go hand in hand when it comes to Conor McGregor, right? It is one of his expressions, like timing beats power and accuracy beats speed, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know the exact quote word for word, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a striker who is as accurate and who could time you like Conor McGregor did, especially when he was fresh, man. A first-round Conor McGregor, especially, seriously, one of the most dangerous strikers we've ever seen in the octagon, and he was essentially landing everything that he was throwing against Eddie Alvarez, and to starch Jose Aldo the way that he did with that one shot, caught him at the exact perfect time, in the perfect spot. The man is just one of the most precise, accurate strikers we've ever seen in the octagon, and he's more than deserving of being represented in this video. Even in the Dustin Poirier rematch right before being finished, before that leg got chewed up, he was boxing the bleeding head off Dustin Poirier, right? He really was, man. That left hand could not miss. It's just a sniper, right? He has one of the most sniper like crosses of all time. Well, I don't feel like I have to explain any further. Conor McGregor is in this video, and for a very good reason. And now I would like to focus on the boxing combinations of Ilia Topuria, because I feel like he implements long combinations better than any other fighter in the UFC right now, and it's how I believe that he can possibly knock out Max Holloway. I think he hits so hard and is so calculated in his approach that if anyone's gonna take Max's chin, it might just be Ilia Topuria. Now, I feel like he really has displayed some of the highest understanding of boxing in the UFC. He, as I said, he could have easily been represented here in the counter striking and defense category, which I had Peter Yan there to represent. But man, Topuria is right behind him when it comes to that. I just need to see him display that against a higher level opponent. Obviously, Volkanovski is one of the highest level opponents that you can display that against. And as you saw right there, nice long combination, ends it off, frames with the left hand, and then just drills him with that nasty right overhand. I'm also a sucker for a nice left hand to the body, and the way that Topuria mixes it up, body and head, in the midst of his boxing combinations is really second to none. The dude is serious business. He really is, and anyone counting him out against Max Holloway, I'm afraid could be sorely mistaken there, because Topuria is legit and has, in my opinion, the best boxing combinations in the game at the moment and maybe throughout MMA history, in my opinion. But now there is only one man to represent kicks in a video like this, and that is Edson Barbosa. At one point I was thinking, maybe Mirko Krokop would make sense, but nah. At the end of the day, man, Edson Barbosa is the best kicker in MMA history. He, like, for fuck's sakes, like, look at that knockout against Terry Edom. He also has 2 leg kick finishes as well as a body kick KO, as you saw right there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. His lead leg switch kick is the best I've ever seen. Lightning quick. No one's ever thrown it as fast. Like, the only like comparable switch kick that I can even think of as far as like speed is maybe Rafael Fiziev, but it's still not even close to that of Edson Barbosa. Even his rear leg roundhouse is nasty, so much power. The spinning back kicks to the body are crippling, man. If you've ever watched his fight against Dan Hooker, you would know, man, he just completely destroyed his body with those spinning back kicks, dude. And he's knocked out, as you saw, Terry Edom with the wheel kick as well, and put multiple fighters on skates. Kevin Lee, Bobby Green, for example. The dude has just displayed such mastery with his kicks, and I know they haven't exactly got him that far. You know, if he had more of a diverse skill set, maybe we would have seen Edson Barbosa be champion. But if we're talking about just his kicks, right, straight up, there is no one in the history of MMA who has displayed that type of mastery. I know I've said that already, but it's just true. And if you disagree, you're just simply wrong in this case, because facts are facts, right? Technique is technique, and it's just technical perfection with Edson Barbosa, right, as he kicks himself off balance right there. But yeah, before I let you guys go with this category, I just want you to see Edson put Kevin Lee on skates, because it's absolutely hilarious. There you go. Edson Barbosa is here in the kicks category. Prove me wrong here if you like, but at the end of the day, you just cannot do it. Now, for takedown defense, I feel like this is, of course, a very, very important trait to represent here. And there really is no better than Jose Aldo. Do I have to really go into much detail on that? I mean, if you've witnessed Jose Aldo defend takedowns, it's honestly pretty ridiculous how explosive he is, how quick he is to get his hips down. And even if he is grounded by his opponent, the speed in which he's able to get back to his feet is ridiculous. And I've honestly never seen anything like it. The balance on display, like the sheer power and explosiveness. It's amazing that his gas tank is as decent as it is, because like he's so explosive and so powerful. Like you would think that he would gas at some point, even though he does slow down in his fights, in his longer, like grueling, like 5-round fights that he's had. It's just amazing to me that with that explosiveness, he's able to keep up a pretty high pace. It's ridiculous. His takedown defense against a wrestler as high level as Chad Mendes was crazy. Frankie Edgar as well. And keep in mind that he stuffed all 16 of Merab Dvalishvili's takedown attempts in their fight, and pretty much left Merab to do nothing but hold on for dear life against the cage. But yeah, self-explanatory, although I did the best I could to explain to those who maybe don't understand how high level Jose Aldo's takedown defense has always been. He probably is the greatest sprawling brawler of all time. I know his style can't really be boiled down to that of a brawler, but yeah, his ability to sprawl is second to none and always has been. And then we have the Thai clinch. And I feel like Anderson Silva represents the highest level Thai clinch in MMA history. Then the second best, I would say, would be like a Vanderlei Silva in his prime. Those nasty knees that he landed on Rampage Jackson. If you've never seen that fight, I recommend watching it, man. The way that he was just laying those knees into the face of Rampage Jackson, put him out cold with the last one, it's just disgusting. So I was very close to including him here, but at the end of the day, man, Anderson Silva's Thai clinch is nasty. It's the best I've ever seen. Sheer dominance. He pretty much finished Rich Franklin in the same way 2 times in a row. Rich just could not figure out the clinch of Anderson Silva. Now, of course, he is one of the best strikers to ever do it, but the fact that his Thai clinch is also so scary and so high level, it's just yet another reason why Anderson Silva is one of the greatest to ever do it, man. Yeah, that clinch was deadly. And for fight IQ, I've gone with Demetrius Johnson. Arguably, it could be GSP here as well. You could even maybe select someone like John Jones. But I have a special category reserved for John Jones. So, yeah, he'll be coming up pretty soon. But, yeah, Demetrius Johnson, I think, just based off of the suplex into the armbar is enough for me to put him here to represent fight IQ. It's honestly ridiculous. Even someone like GSP will tell you that Demetrius is the best fighter he's ever seen. Like, great fighters understand how high level Demetrius Johnson is. You can't even really describe a lot of the techniques that he pulls off. The man is just something else, truly. He really is something else in his prime to figure out even like Adriano Moraes, the way that he did right? After getting knocked out, he came out in that rematch so confident because he knew what was going to happen, and he's such a good, smart fighter that even in the Muay Thai round against someone like Rodtang in 1FC, he was able to survive. And not only survive, but have success on the feet. And then the second that he had the advantage in MMA, he took it and finished Rodtang. The man is just on another level when it comes to fight IQ. Of course, it is hard to describe fight IQ. You know what I mean? It's really hard to describe unless I'm doing like a really deep, like comprehensive breakdown. But I hope that you guys understand Demetrius enough to really get where I'm coming from here when I have him to represent the highest level fight IQ in MMA. So yeah, if you're building a Frankenstein UFC fighter or MMA fighter, you would probably want to put Demetrius's brain in his head. Now, for raw power, this one might be a little bit controversial here because most people would, of course, choose the hardest hitting heavyweight there is, like a Derek Lewis and or Ngannou, maybe even Anthony Johnson, which, you know, both or all three of those would be perfectly fine answers for this category as well. But I don't think anyone's ever punched with more raw power than Dan Henderson. And it's also just the way that he throws his shots, right? He just throws his shots with sheer, I don't know, brute force behind them. Like there's very little technique to go along with it. He just would knock the lights out of anybody. I mean, that knockout against Michael Bisping is enough to put him on this raw power list. But then, yeah, you see him stun guys like Shogun Rua like that. And, you know, not to mention the way that he knocked out a Fedor Emelianenko, man, it's serious business. And this wasn't like way past his prime Fedor either. This was a good Fedor. It really was. And, you know, Dan got stunned here, as you see, but then you see the way he reverses position. And then all it takes is one shot. Look at that, man. One shot and Fedor Emelianenko was face first, flopping around on the fucking canvas, man. So you may just disagree with me on this one, and that's all good if you do. But for me, there is no better answer when it comes to raw power than Dan Henderson, baby. Now, for footwork, I was originally going to actually go with somebody that I really don't like Sean O'Malley. For some reason, Dominic didn't cross my mind at the beginning, but then I realized, yes, the obvious choice is, of course, Dominic Cruz for this. I know like some people would say that I should have maybe put head movement for this as well, but I just don't think that his head movement is really that practical and eventually led to him getting hurt against guys like Cody Garbrandt and Chito Vera, even like Pedro Munoz and stuff, right? But early in his career, of course, it was very effective, but then eventually his opponents were able to figure it out sometime down the line. But it did take a while for opponents to figure it out. You know, many have tried to imitate him, such as like TJ Dillashaw, and you could even argue that TJ Dillashaw could be representing footwork in this video as well. But yeah, for me, the way that Dominic Cruz would backpedal, switch stances, change angles, you know, everything's just so fluent. It really is just a no-brainer. His footwork was the setup for most of what he did in the octagon. His takedowns, his strikes, really everything. I know his head movement was great, but for me, it's his footwork that truly elevated Dominic Cruz to being one of the all-time greats. Now, the perfect MMA fighter has to have a chin, and there is no better chin than Max Holloway. The only real competition for him when it comes to this category is maybe a Marvin Vettori. But even then, Max Holloway has the record for most significant strikes absorbed to the head and has still never been knocked down. I know technically Justin Gaethje, I think maybe should be credited with a knockdown on Max Holloway, but his ability to never really look like he's going to be finished. It doesn't matter how hard you hit him, how stunned he may look in the moment, how wobbled he may be. He never looks like he's going to be finished. It seems like, honestly, at this point, it seems impossible to finish the man. I know when I was speaking about Topuria, I said maybe he's the one to do it. But then I'm watching this clip right here, and Dustin Poirier hits like a goddamn truck. And he couldn't do it, man. Neither could Justin Gaethje. No one can seem to crack this ridiculous Hawaiian chin. He just eats everything for fun. Even as you just saw right there, gets dropped. I think that was a knockdown. It doesn't seem to matter. Max Holloway is impervious to damage. And, of course, he's going to represent the chin for a video like this, man. Now, the perfect MMA fighter has to be a finisher, right? And he has to smell blood in the water. And if there's any fighter in the history of MMA that I would not want to know that I'm in a vulnerable state or in a stunned or rocked state, it's Dustin Poirier. When this man knows you're hurt, the way that he swarms on his opponents, squares up to you against the fence, and just unloads on you. You don't know which shot's coming at you next because he can fight out of both stances. He switches fluently in between his combinations, and he just does not let up until you're either out cold or maybe you crack him and then deter him slightly. But even then, it's really hard to deter Dustin Poirier when he knows you're hurt, because the man just swarms you and does not give you a second to breathe. And there are many examples of this happening. Yeah, you do not want to be against the fence when this dude is just unloading on you. It's a scary, scary thing. The boxing combinations are just nasty, and they only get more impressive as his career goes on as well. I feel like once he grew hair, his boxing technique like really improved. He does not let up until you are on the canvas. Many other examples of this too, man. Even someone like an Eddie Alvarez, man, got completely pieced up by Poirier against the fence in their rematch. Their first fight did end in it was either a no contest or a DQ. I think it might have been a no contest in the end, but just pieces up a tough guy like Eddie Alvarez, man. And then not to mention the Conor McGregor finish. It looked like Conor McGregor was maybe getting the better of him, and man, Poirier just noticed something, right? A subtle shift in Conor's body language, and then just swarmed on him and became the first man to finish Conor McGregor. Dustin Poirier's killer instinct is second to none. And of course, how could I forget to mention the Benoit Saint-Denis finish? Just a thing of beauty. Smelt blood in the water and finished him brutally. Yeah, Dustin Poirier is seriously one of the most bloodthirsty fighters who's ever stepped foot in the octagon, man. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't just shoehorn this category in here for the purpose of having Dustin Poirier in this video at some point. Not gonna lie. And now you have to talk about cardio in a video like this, and there is no other answer other than Merab Dvalishvili. He's shown an inhuman gas tank. Honestly, it's amazing to me that he hasn't tested positive for any performance-enhancing substances, because it's just kind of unheard of. I've never seen a fighter fight at the pace of Merab Dvalishvili and be able to keep it up for 25 minutes the way that he's able to, man, against Peter Yan. He attempted like upwards of like 50-something takedowns, I swear, and the man never gassed. And God, I just hate him because of that. But at the same time, that cardio is something special. And he puts guys like fucking Colby Covington and Max Holloway to shame with his cardio, and he's the only option for this category, man. He really is. And now I know it may seem weird to have Cody Garbrandt in this video in any capacity, really, but he deserves to be on here for speed. He's really just been a speed merchant his entire career. The hand speed, the speed in which he changes levels, really everything. The man is just extremely fast, and that's really all it comes down to, and I don't believe it requires any additional explanation. Now, to be the perfect fighter, man, you can't just have a chin. You can't just have Max Holloway's chin. You need the heart of Frankie Edgar. And I believe that he displays the biggest heart of any fighter. You just have to really think about the fact that he's a goddamn bantamweight, pretty much. Like the fact that he fought at bantamweight late in his career, even fought at featherweight, and was a lightweight champ with 3 title defenses. So he's fighting bigger men his whole career. And you really just have to watch the trilogy with Gray Maynard. The beating that he took in round 1. It seems like he was on death's doorstep in round 1 of all their fights. And to come back the way that he did and even get to the scorecards in their second fight, but then to, again, persevere, come back against Gray Maynard in their third fight as well, and then get that finish, man. No one has displayed the level of heart, grit, determination, just straight toughness that Frankie Edgar has. I mean, how many fighters can say that they willingly fought in a division where they were undersized and also became champion in said division with multiple title defenses? Like I said, man, Frankie Edgar has the goddamn heart of a lion. Now, last but not least, the perfect fighter has to be a little crafty in there. If John Jones has showed us anything, the GOAT needs to be able to cheat in the octagon and get away with it with a slap on the wrist every single time, in particular with the eye pokes. Now, of course, once again, the haters will say, oh, how about Jones's elbows? How about his oblique kicks? Whatever. I don't care. The most effective move in the arsenal of John Jones is and has always been the eye pokes, right? Who's to say that he would have the amazing record that he has if not for the eye pokes and just the general cheating and foul play during his fights. Really, I mean, I'm not too sure, and we'll never really know at the end of the day. Of course, Jon Jones, the fight IQ is extremely high, the technique is great, the well-rounded skill set, of course, all that. But at the end of the day, he still did have an unprecedented ability to cheat during his fights and still get away with it. So at the end of the day, man, is he as great, or would he be as great without all the eye pokes? I guess we'll never really know. But as far as I'm concerned, man, he's one of the biggest cheaters in the sport. But he's considered the GOAT by many. So by these standards, the GOAT, or the perfect MMA fighter, must be able to cheat. So I'm giving him the eye pokes of Jon Jones, baby. Well, that does conclude the video on the perfect fighter. As you can see right here, these are all the attributes laid out. And I do believe that all these attributes put into one fighter would literally make the perfect, unbeatable fighter. I'm sure there's going to be no arguments from you guys in the comments, but you do surprise me at times. But anyway, guys, I do appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.